Okay, we're talking to Andrew and Christopher today about traveling with your credit card points, how to get started, some top tips, and how they use their points to travel while they're house sitting. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got started, or?
Yeah. So I'm Andrew and Christopher. We're known as Global Wanderers, and we are full-time house sitters. We've been on the road since May 2016. And the whole credit card thing, we've been doing that for years. Even before we started house sitting, we were using points and trying to accrue as many points as possible. We sort of approach it a bit like a sport. Quite keen on getting as many points as possible. We've actually got a friend that when we go to visit her in between sits, she says she tells other people they just sit at their computers looking up points and credit cards and that sort of thing. So
that's all you do.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, we're looking for other house sits as well. So, so we find it really fun to do, and there's always hidden gems in there, and it's like, oh yes, we can get those points and that sort of thing. So so we try and use our points as much as possible, but we don't only use points. And I think that's an important distinction that we should make, is that there are times where it's actually better and more beneficial, cheaper, better use of points not to use your points and save them for another time. So, and we've got some examples that we'll happily go through with people as well. So.
Well, that's great. That's an awesome point too, because we do tend to think in the big picture, oh, got to use points all the time. And you're right. Sometimes it's better to get more points.
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
Than to blow the points that you have.
Yes. So what we would do is book the flight using the credit card, so that we get the points on the credit card, but we're still actually paying for that flight. So
right.
And there's sometimes where you can't actually get seats on reward flights, so you have to buy the flight. So
okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's take it back to the start. How does one get started in using their credit cards and points for travel?
Okay, so the main thing that we would say is, and if I can share my screen, I'm not sure how to do that.
There we go.
So the main thing that we would say is research, and this can take a lot of time. So you do need to allocate some time to do this.
Right.
So one of the first things that you need to be aware of are the three major alliances of airlines. And we tend to gravitate towards the airlines that we prefer. So when we first started, our airline of preference was Singapore Airlines, which is part of Star Alliance. Coming from Australia, we have a national carrier called Qantas, and it's part of One World. So the good thing about the alliances is you can use points. If you, for instance, have points in Qantas, when you get to America, you'll be able to use those points on American Airlines. So the points transfer between airlines. Not necessarily at the ratio of 1-to-1, but it does. With these alliances, you can basically travel all the way around the world using one of the alliances as such. So, the other airline in Australia that is not part of an alliance is Velocity, or Virgin Australia. It sort of sits out on its own. However, there are agreements where you can actually transfer points from Velocity to KrisFlyer Miles, which is Singapore Airlines.
Okay.
Sort of, there's all these little idiosyncrasies amongst the alliances as well. So that would be the first thing.
You need to know, you need to research the alliances and the different groups to make sure you know how you can use your points.
That's right. And what I would suggest is start with your preferred airline. So if you're in America and you want to, you fly American Airlines, or you're in Spain and you fly Iberia, find out which alliances those airlines belong to, and then you can see other airlines that you can fly with that will give you the a points bonus, or a points alliance, so to speak. The other thing, and Chris may want to speak about, it's not only about airlines and accruing points that way. So there's other ways that we do that as well. So.
Yes, to give you an example, with the Velocity Frequent Flyer program, you can get points, for instance, like if you buy fuel at a service station.
Mm-hmm.
If you pay for that fuel with a credit card, you get points for your credit card and you get points for swiping your Velocity card. So you're basically getting double points for the one purchase. We have in Australia a supermarket chain called Woolworths.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own rewards program. Again, you go in, buy your groceries, scan your Woolworths rewards card, get points for that, pay with it with a credit card, get more points for your credit card. And quite often with the supermarket chain, they also have liquor stores as well. But they might have a promotion that if you buy your groceries, some petrol, and something from the liquor store, you will get, and for instance, a bonus 4,000 points if you were to purchase something from all three within a period of a week.
Wow.
So you can sign up to these reward programs and you will get a weekly or even more often than weekly email letting you know what promotions are going on at the time. Well, we've still got to buy groceries and eat. We still need petrol for our car and we do like a drink occasionally.
Once in a while.
Or you can give it as a gift if you don't drink. So.
Yeah.
No.
Like, you're not going out of your way to buy things that you don't necessarily need or use anyway. So it's just a matter of being smart about when you use it and how you use it.
Right.
So the other supermarket chain we have in Australia is Coles, or one of the other supermarket chains, and they have a program called Flybuys. So the same thing, buying groceries, scan your Flybuys card, you get Flybuy points, but pay with it on credit card, and you get the credit card points as well. So you're getting sort of a double dip.
Right.
And in the last probably 2 years, we've basically removed cash from our life and we pay everything on credit card, even a cup of coffee. $4, $3. It all adds up. It's all about getting as many points as you can. And those things you're going to buy anyway, so you may as well get the benefit of getting the points. Christopher and I use an app called Stocard. Do you want to talk about that?
Stocard is a digital app on your phone where you can store all your membership cards, and again, it also alerts you to different reward programs that are going on at the time. So you don't necessarily have to carry all your cards around with you. You just have them all stored on your phone. It creates a barcode or a QR code, and you just scan that when you're at the supermarket or the petrol station or wherever.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
The other thing we love about Stocard is we have, for instance, our Woolworths Rewards and our Flybuys and our BP, Velocity. We have one card between the two of us so that we're not getting points in two separate accounts. We're using one account between the two of us. Now, that doesn't work with airlines. You've got to have it because since we're flying together, you need to have separate accounts to get points on flights and things like that. But there are, for instance, the supermarkets and the grocery chains and the fuel chains. It's better to have one account between two people because then your points are pooled automatically. So you don't have to sort of wait for, the rate of accumulating points is going to be faster. So, and if we shop independently, we can still use the card because we've got it on Stocard. We don't need to plastic card.
Yeah, that's the problem we have is Tim will go shopping and he doesn't have the card.
And let me tell you, Christopher gets in trouble if you go to the market and he doesn't scan the card.
Well, you see, that could be a flight. That could be half a flight.
Yeah. The other site that we use a lot is Point Hacks. For Australia, Point Hacks is a fabulous site. So what the guy that runs Point Hacks, it's actually his business, he goes through and analyzes all the credit cards, which ones are the best. Every month he will send you out an email saying, this credit card has a bonus at the moment, this would be a good card, or this card is changing its terms and conditions, now's the time to ditch that card. The only thing with him, his big focus is using points to upgrade. So he would say the points are a better value when you upgrade from an economy to a business class flight. We don't do that. So we just use our points for economy travel. But at the same time, he's got such a wealth of knowledge, and he sends out regular newsletters, and he's got a Facebook group that comes up in your feed if you subscribe to him. So yeah, no, he's well worth looking
Wow,
at.
that's perfect. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, particularly for the Australian market, because I know that it is a little bit different. So. And the other thing that Christopher does is uses Red Planet.
And Red Planet is a research company that is actually owned by Qantas Airways. And basically every few days I'll get sent out a survey to do questions about, it might be about the banking industry, it might be about travel, it might be about supermarket chains. And basically these surveys would take about 15 minutes, and you might get anywhere between 150 points to 500 points. And that really adds up. When I look at how many points I can earn from doing that just for a few minutes every week, it certainly adds up over a period of a year. And yeah, it's something that just pops up on your screen. You think, okay, I've got 15 minutes now, I'll do it. Done. Points go into your account, and then you can transfer them to the airline of your choice.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, so it doesn't require you to always have to have a credit card to get points.
Well, then that's a good piece to know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
The other thing too, in terms of the research, if you're looking at credit cards, and this is where Point Hacks can really come in useful, you've got to do your research about how much the card is going to cost, and annual fees, and are there limits on spending and that sort of thing. What transactions aren't included, that's a big thing in Australia. So a lot of government transactions such as tax or water utilities and electricity, that won't be included. I've found a way around that, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So there is, Excel becomes your friend, where you have tables where you're comparing cards and that sort of thing. So if we're looking at a credit card, what I will tend to do is go through, do the research, do it up in an Excel table, or just a table, handwritten table even, then talk about it with Christopher, and then sort of have a strategy about, okay, these are the cards we're going to get, or this is the card that we're going to get. So research is your key. So dedicate some time to doing it and enjoy it. I mean, it's not a matter of sort of wading through stuff. As you start to research, you think, oh, if I just bought another $20 worth of groceries this week, so I'll buy some more toilet paper and stuff that I'm going to use anyway, I can get an extra 10,000 points. Easy, done.
Wicked.
Yes.
So which one is Sherlock and which one is Watson?
Well, I think the hat changes from week to week.
Well, that's good. So you share it. So not one of you is doing all of it all the time. That's a great way to keep it going, so that you're not having just one person having to go through and do all that. Because I know I find it a bit overwhelming at times, plus everything else, and I'm trying to find out other stuff. So it's just sometimes research loses its momentum.
Yes, and we tend not to do research together. We'll do it independently. So we'll both go off and research, and then come back and say, we'll be sitting side by side on each other on different computers, but then we'll come back and say, oh, did you see this? Did you see that sort of thing? So. And when we're looking at flights, we'll always say, okay, who can find the cheapest flight between A and B? So.
Good for you. Well, it's nice. It's nice that you share that, because in many of the couples that we know, as you know, in house sitting, it's usually, the women do all the planning, the guys do the, Gavin sits in his chair and takes pictures of. He's never going to live that down. You know that.
Having said that, I will probably gravitate more to flights and will gravitate more to accommodation. Yeah.
Ah, okay. So you're the accommodation guru. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Because you guys find some really cool places. That's for sure. Okay, so we've covered how to get started. So do your research. Find out if there's anything like a Point Hacks in your area, or sign up for it. And use the what was the other one? Sorry,
like look at non-airline, non-ways.
Yes, yes.
Whether it's supermarkets, fuel change, surveys, sort of things. So.
Yeah, that surveys one is really intriguing. I think that'd be easy for lots of people to get involved with. Those are good points. So, and that you use your cards for everything and go cashless. That's really brilliant. We've tried to do that, but we found that, coming back to the island where everybody's got their little farm stalls outside at the end of their roads along the highway, you got to have some cash.
Yeah, and we're in Mexico at the moment, and it's the same thing, that cards aren't accepted everywhere. So, you can't be
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
And one
but at least as long as you have that philosophy.
Yeah, one thing to consider too, if you are traveling and using credit cards, is to always look for cards that don't add charges like international transaction charges or conversion charges. We always will look for a card that doesn't include those fees, because really it's really devaluing your points by having to pay those charges when you probably are paying cash.
Yeah. No, we have. You're very fortunate, and a number of people I've talked to in the U.S. and I think some people in the U.K. have the same sort of thing where you have no international fees. Unfortunately, Canadian cards so far aren't like that. So, and then my first day in Mexico, my card was compromised. So, first restaurant.
Wow.
So I had to order another one, but you can't get it sent to you. So, there's all sorts of things that go along with that. But
yes, we've got that actually happened to us last year when we were in Mexico. My cards were compromised, but because we have dual cards on accounts, so when we rang the bank, we just said stop my card, but don't stop Christopher's card. So we still
perfect.
So, and because we don't keep our cards together, of course, his wallet and my wallet. That's a way to sort of circumvent in that eventuality, which unfortunately is part of travel, and it's going to happen. So you've sort of got to put a strategy in place to get around that. So that's what we've done.
That's right. And another thing that we've tried to do is we keep a couple of cards that have a low balance, just in case. And those are the cards that we use, and just keep paying them off, because that way you're not getting caught with someone. I mean, I think in Mexico they charged $300, and then they hit my limit. So I really didn't get much, and I had insurance on it, so I got it all back. So that wasn't really an issue, but it was just the pain of losing it or not being able to have it.
Yes.
So we tended to, we at that point, that kind of turned us off using the credit cards for everything, and we went to using cash for everything. But as you have to, as you say, sort of have a different mindset. And, if it's a low balance, don't worry about it, because most of the cards are insured anyways.
Yes.
So you're not going to get charged for it all. But
yes. And we tend to, the cards that we use for international travel tend to be separate to all our other bank accounts. So they're, they sort of operate independently of our, I've got a business that runs in Australia, so it's not connected at all to those business accounts or our personal accounts as well. So, they're isolated. It's isolated, and there's a low limit.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, that's an awesome point, because we tend to use it for everything. We just have, 2 cards and that's it. But that's a really good point to remember that one.
And the other thing too is it's often beneficial from an Australian point of view not to have all your cards with the same bank, because the banks in Australia tend not to honour loyalty. But when you sign up with a different bank, they'll give you a bonus. So it's better maybe to change banks every so often, even though it is a huge pain. It can be worth it. Our eyes have sort of lit up times when we see bonus points and think, if we just change banks, we can get those bonus points. So, which is a flight to the US or something. So.
So poaching is alive and well. Well done.
And we have a story about that we can tell you.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I've been an American Express card holder for nearly 30 years. And lately, or in the last, say, 12 months, 18 months, American Express have been putting out all these new cards that have got bonus points for this, bonus points for that. When you sign up, or you'll get a $400 credit towards travel, and other various sort of incentives for people to sign up. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, here I've been a long-term customer of theirs, and they're encouraging new people to sign up, but I get nothing.
Uh-huh.
So I said to Andrew, I said, I'm going to ring up and cancel that card and look at a new card, that's giving us bonuses. So I rang American Express, and the woman I spoke to says, how can I help you today? I said, I'd like to cancel my card. And she goes, oh, okay, just a moment. She comes back on and she goes, she said, you've been a member with us for nearly 30 years. She said, we would really hate to lose you as a customer. Why do you want to leave? I said, well, you're giving all these bonuses to people that are just joining now. What incentive is there for me to stay? And she just said, just hold for a moment. She goes away. A minute later, she comes back. She goes, she said, if we were to offer you 50,000 bonus points, would you stay? And I said, can you just hold a minute? And
I'll think about it.
We were just in the middle of booking flights from London to Mumbai. And I said to Andrew, how many points do we need to get from London to Mumbai? He said, 48,000. I said, there's my answer. So I went back on and I said, yep, okay, I'll accept that. So just don't become complacent and just think, okay, well, this is what I've got. That's what I've got to stay with. I think people are very desperate for people's business in the credit industry. And yeah, if you speak up, you never know what you might get. If you don't speak up, you'll get nothing.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we get very, we have less choices than you do, so we don't even think really of moving elsewhere. Plus there's the other side of it where, when you don't have a job.
Yeah.
And you're applying for a credit card.
Yeah.
So,
further to that story, I then banked with one of the big four banks in Australia. I went, Westpac, and I thought, and there was a credit card. They were offering the same thing, same deal. So I thought, well, I'll ring up and ask them. So I rang up and I said, I'd like to close my account. And she goes, okay, well, you owe so much on this card and we can do that for you today.
Whoa!
Not the answer that I wanted. So yeah, so I ended up closing that account. I didn't get, and the response when I said there's incentives to sign up, her response was, you would have received that bonus when you first signed up for that card, which would have been probably 18 years ago.
Yeah, no.
I can't remember. So, I just said, okay, well, I'll just close the card. So,
Wow.
So it works sometimes, it doesn't work other times, but that's part of the fun. It's like, okay, let's see what we can get today. So
if I can't get anything here, let's move on to here.
That's right, exactly.
Okay. So now, in saying that, how many cards do you guys believe is needed or are needed? Now, you've mentioned credit cards, you've mentioned other cards with, grocery stores, gas stations, whatever. Oh, you have a slide. Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we probably recommend...
I know I've read some of this.
Yeah, we would probably recommend up to three cards at a time. Couple of reasons for that. One is a lot of cards, when you sign up to them, they have bonus sign-up points, but to get that bonus, you've got to spend maybe $3,000 on that card. Or
in the first month or 2 months, right?
2 months, exactly. So you can't juggle too many cards unless you're, I don't know, money laundering or something illegal. So so we would probably recommend 3 cards at the one time. And these are the 3 current cards that we have. So the ANZ Visa Rewards Platinum, we got that because we received the 65,000 bonus points on sign up. And that was with Qantas. So they were offering Qantas points at the time. And we knew we were going to be flying to America, where we could use American Airlines because we knew about the alliance. So we thought, yeah, we can use those points. After we got those points, I've then converted that to a Velocity card. It wasn't a new card, it's just a transfer to the card type, because it's better for us to earn Velocity points because they're more useful in our part of the world. And it also includes our travel insurance at the moment. So that was
perfect. What about, sorry, just quickly on that car rental? Do you get car rental insurance on that one?
Yes, we
well?
do.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And the one thing about this travel insurance is it would cover you up to 6 months of travel, whereas a lot of them will cut off at 3 months or thereabouts. So.
Yeah. And our current trip is 5 months long, so we needed something.
Perfect.
But this is all part of the research. You've got to sort of go into those details. And this is where your table becomes really useful when you're drawing up what are the criteria that you need on a particular card.
Right.
American Express Explorer. I've had that now for a couple of years. It's a $395 yearly fee, but that's offset and you get a $400 travel credit, which you can use with American Express Travel. Now, there's one flight that I do every year from Sydney to Rockhampton for a yoga retreat that I do, and that usually costs about $400. So I know that I'm going to use that $400 credit. So,
perfect, yeah.
The point earn rate is quite good, 1.5 points per dollar, and we can also redeem those for multiple airlines such as Virgin, Velocity, KrisFlyer. I think there's Air New Zealand, there's Air Asia Miles, which is Malaysian.
Oh, wow.
What we do is we leave them in the American Express account, and then when we want them in a particular airline, we'll then just transfer them over. And then when I was looking earlier this year, I noticed that they were offering a 3,000 point bonus if I got Christopher a card on that account for no extra charge. So he now owns an American Express Explorer card that he doesn't use, but he could use if he needed it. But so that was, for the fact of clicking a few buttons, putting in his name, date of birth, and he got a supplementary card, and we got 3,000 points.
Bingo.
And then the Coles Reward MasterCard I found out through Points Hack, and it's saying it's one of the best reward redemption rate cards because it's only $99 per year for both of us for 2 cards, and there's no international transaction fees. So up till this trip, we were using a card called 28 Degrees, but you didn't earn points on that card, and there was no international transaction fees. So this trip, we're really excited that we can actually travel, still use our cards, still get points, and have no international transaction fees. So, and so far it's been going fine, working really well, and it has a high earn rate. And usually twice a year, they have a sign-up bonus of 10,000 points. But that bonus wasn't applicable when we applied. I left it right to the last minute before we were leaving Australia, that bonus wasn't current. So we got the card without the bonus. So you win some and you lose some, but we thought it was better to get the card and be able to earn the points whilst we travel, especially when we're paying in a lot of, foreign, Airbnb and foreign
currencies
and hotels and car hire and all that sort of stuff. So we'll get those 10,000 points by just doing the travel. Now, those are the 3 cards that we currently have. These are 3 cards that we've cancelled this year as well.
Oh.
So there was a Bank West promotion where you got 10,000 bonus points where you signed up, and all you had to do was make 10 transactions of $2 or more within the first month.
Wow.
First month. So we soon did that. The Star card, the 20,000 bonus points, because I run a business, that's a fuel card. It's a Caltex fuel chain in Australia. So by signing that up and putting in my ABN, my business number, I could get 20,000 bonus points for that. And then this, the Westpac Altitude Black card, which is the one that I cancelled because they wouldn't give me a bonus.
Oh, okay.
When I cancelled that, they actually give you a membership to Priority Pass, access to lounges and things like that. So
that's a $200 a year bonus.
Yeah. So, and So we got that. So that's going to, more than pay for itself. We're already planning on using that in Guadalajara. We've got a couple of hours where we need to spend in an airport, so we'll go into the lounge. So this table here, because we were back in Australia for 6 months this year, from February to September, we tend to do the credit card rejig once a year when we're back in Australia, because you need to do the minimum spend and all that sort of thing.
Right.
But we've accrued, just through bonuses, 155,000 bonus points by just changing cards, signing up to cards. There's Christopher's 50,000 Amex points from a simple phone call.
Well done.
The B2B pay is where I pay for all my business expenses. So what they do is you can pay for your tax and your utilities and all that sort of thing on a credit card, and you will still get the points on the credit card because it's like a third party that pays it on your behalf.
Oh,
You
okay.
pay a premium surcharge, but when you're paying, $5,000 bills, $8,000 bills with your business, our justification is it's worth that surcharge to get the points, because the points are going to be very valuable to us as we're flying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool.
So we so going back to your original question, I would say up to 3 cards at a time. Cycle through them. So do a review. Don't get complacent. Feel free to change banks. If you're not using a card, however, cancel it, because that will contribute to your overall credit rating. And also, if there's another bonus that comes up in 12 months' time, a lot of the criteria for you to get that bonus is that you haven't been a card holder with that bank for 6 months or something. So it's better that you sort of close accounts as you don't need them. Research your other inclusions, your travel insurance, your priority pass, travel credits, free flights. And the big thing about all this is only get credit cards if you can pay them off in full every month.
Good point.
You're going to pay and point hacks actually go into this. If you don't pay off the full amount, you're going to pay so many fees that the flight that you think, oh yes, it's going to be a rather cheap flight because of all these bonus points, is actually going to end up costing you more than if you just bought the flight outright. Because those fees add up, because it's 20% interest per year, and it's,
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah, that's a key point, and I'm glad you brought it up, because, I think everybody has to wake up to that. If you're going to do this, you have to be responsible about it, and you have to be able to pay it off. And that's just the bottom line. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when we say we use credit card for everything, we basically know that the money's in the bank, that day, the moment that we put it on the credit card, we have the money in order to pay that card off. So we don't say, oh, well, we're waiting for next month when that money will come through. We don't put anything on the card if we don't have enough money to clear that. So, and the same goes for us as well. So I don't.
That's just great advice. That's just great financial planning advice. Not just for credit cards. It's just for everything, right? Especially with our lifestyle.
Yes, exactly.
I think another thing too to be wary of is the credit limit that they will give you for each card. Because recently when we got the Coles MasterCard, they gave a ridiculous limit. But basically, as I said to Andrew, I think what they're doing is they're maxing out your credit potential so that you can't get any other cards and you have to use their card.
That's a good point.
So we reduced the limit on that by 2/3 to what they've given us, just so that there's that buffer that if we see another card that's worth getting, we can still get it, and they haven't locked us out of being able to get it.
That's a brilliant point. Thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of people don't understand that about credit cards. You can ask them to. That's what we did with a couple of ours, simply because of our issue with having our cards compromised. Have them under $2,000, and that's it. So if somebody does get it, and it's not putting such a ding, as you say, on your credit rating or your credit score. And that's the things we have to be careful about with this lifestyle, is not losing that credit score.
Yes, that's right.
If you don't.
because the thing is, if you have a small credit limit, let's just say you've got $2,000 on a card and you want to buy a computer worth $5,000, you can put that credit card into credit. So you can transfer the money that make sure that there is $5,000 on it. Go and pay for the computer, you get the points, but the money's already gone out of your account, basically. So, which is another way that we have used cards in the past too, if the credit limit hasn't allowed us to buy something that we wanted to do. So whether it's a new phone or computer or drone or whatever technology you want.
The must-haves.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's just quickly touch on the whole credit rating and how you juggle that. So you only have the 3 cards, and then you cancel the other ones, so you're not getting as big a hit.
Yeah. And the other thing too to be aware of, well, particularly in Australia, they're going to ask you a lot of questions. So what I do is when I do my tax return every year, I just save that as a PDF. I make sure that I've got that electronically. I make sure I've got proof of income electronically, my identity electronically, so that as you go through the credit application process, you've already got those files there and handy, because they will keep coming back and they will keep asking those questions until you can provide that information. Right. One thing in Australia that we've discovered is that shares aren't considered part of your assets. So, because they're considered...
So investments.
That's right. So property investment, yes. Rental income is considered in your overall income. But
right,
shares aren't, because what they say is that you could sell those today, withdraw the money out of your account, and then that changes your whole credit story. So in terms of what they're going to loan you against. So, so just be aware that, because we do have a significant amount of money in shares, that's one of our investments. So every time we applied, they wouldn't consider that as part of the money that they would loan money against. So.
Because it's not yet realized. Today it might be worth 20,000. Tomorrow it might be worth 5.
Yes, don't say that.
No, it's just a reality. I'm sorry.
Yes, right. Yes, exactly.
Get into marijuana stocks, you'll understand.
Yes, or Bitcoin, depending on when you.
Bitcoin. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
So and as Christopher said, reduce that credit. So when you get a card, reduce that credit limit down to what you want it to be, because they want to try and give you as much credit as possible, because of course they're going to make money when you don't pay off the card in full.
Yes.
So sort of play the
22% interest rates.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are in Australia, you can, I think, get a credit report where it will actually go through what your credit rating is. We've never done that. We've never really been denied a card.
Perfect.
But the other thing too is as part of the application process, you have to say how much money is available on your other credit cards as well. So that's why it's good not to have too many. So if you've got, 15 cards at $10,000 each, well, that's $150,000 worth of credit. They're not going to give you any more credit, depending on your income.
Exactly.
But,
because
you keep the limit down and the number down, so that gives you're not at the upper echelon of your credit limit. So.
Your available credit, exactly. Yeah, that's another good point. Okay, so can you take us through a redemption? How do you redeem your points? What do you do to redeem your points? Take us through a regular redemption, shall we say?
Well, there's no such thing as a regular redemption. So the first thing we do is we look at what points we have, and we use a number of apps for this. So I use the Virgin Australia app for our Virgin points, the Qantas app for our Qantas points. Christopher, do you want to talk about TripIt and how you use TripIt?
Yes, I don't know if you're familiar with the app called TripIt. It's got a lot of features. There's a free version, but there's also a pro version. The pro version actually taps into all your different airline programs or card programs, and it'll, in real time, it'll let you know exactly how many points that you've got in every account, and it will alert you if any of them are about to expire, or give you a way of managing things or be able to move them around quite easily. And that's one thing that I swear by having, at hand, especially when we're searching flights. I can just have all that information on one screen in front of me, and then we can move points around or whatever and then book our flights.
Yeah, so that's the pro version.
Cool.
So Christopher has that. I don't have the pro version, but we seem to manage, and I just do you guessed it, another spreadsheet that tallies up all our points before we book it. Then we...
you have to have backup.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Then we use Google Flights. Now, the reason we use Google Flights is it will tell us what flights or what airlines fly the particular route that we want to fly. So, for instance, let's say we're going from Guadalajara in Mexico to London, not a familiar route to us. So let's look at that. What airlines will fly that route? We looked it up, American Airlines. Because of our knowledge of the alliances, we know immediately American Airlines, we can use Qantas points. Okay, how many Qantas points are we going to need? So I just did this today. Now, this is mind-boggling and, well, not mind-boggling, it's revelationary, really. So I looked at that flight, Guadalajara to London, 6th of March next year. This is on the Qantas site. Depending on the airlines that you choose will determine the number of points that you need and the amount of taxes that you are going to pay. Right. So by using American Airlines directly, so the top one, that's just 2 American airline flights, 35,000 points. If we use the second option, which is an American Airlines flight, but it's operated by Mesa Airlines as American Eagle. Don't know that airline, never heard of them, but that's going to cost me 54,000 points, which is going to get me from Guadalajara to London just on different airplanes. And if I use American Airlines and a British Airways flight, that's going to cost me 46,000 points. Now, looking at that, you're going to get from point A to point B. The first flight is actually shorter in terms of time and less points. Of course, you're going to choose that flight. So just be aware that choosing different airlines will give you different amounts of points. And when we were doing this route, I thought, this can't be right. I Googled it and up came a Point Hacks article, and Qantas is known for being more expensive, and American Airlines is known for being one of the cheaper ways that you can redeem Qantas points use American Airlines, but use Qantas points to redeem the flights.
So way more bang for your buck.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
Like the difference between the taxes and fees between American Airlines and Qantas, I think we got from Guadalajara to London for
$200.
$200 for both of us. But if we had done it with Qantas, it was going to be something like $460 each.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's a big difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. So taxes and fees are something that you need to. So it means a lot of going backwards and forwards. So booking a flight is quite time consuming, but as house sitters, if you're twiddling your thumbs, you really have nothing else to do. Smoke the pet while you're Googling the flight.
There you go.
And to also give another example of when you should buy a flight versus use points, we got flights from Kuala Lumpur to Sydney for $160 each.
Cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you couldn't get flights from there, say on the basis of 1 point equals 1 cent, you couldn't get flights on points that would be of a lesser value than what we paid cash for that flight.
Yeah.
Okay. So research both options before you make your decision.
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely.
So here's the trip that we're on at the moment. So we flew from Sydney to Los Angeles with Virgin Australia. Now, that would normally cost you 90,000 points and then $203.48 in taxes and fees. When we were booking this flight, there was a special on that when you transferred your points from American Express to Velocity, you got a 15% bonus. And then if you booked a flight on Virgin Australia, there was a 15% bonus in terms of less points required to book that route. So what would have cost us 90,000 points ended up costing us 66,686 Velocity points. So you've got another 25,000 points nearly for your next flight whenever you want to fly Virgin. Then getting from LA to Mexico City, there was really no airline that would provide us with a point advantage. So we just paid $433.91 to fly Interjet. We could have, flown through the States and, had a layover of 6 hours, but after the 14-hour flight from Sydney to LA, we just wanted to get to Mexico. So we said,
yeah, no, I hear you.
hang the $433. So. And Interjet doesn't have any frequent flyer alliances or anything like that. So we just paid the $433, but we used our credit card, so we got the points on the credit card at least.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then from Guadalajara to London, we used the Qantas points, making sure that we booked 2 American Airlines flights. And that was cheaper going from Guadalajara to London than Mexico City to London, because we're going to be in Ajijic. We thought we'll transfer to Mexico City, then fly through to London. But that was actually going to cost us more points because that was on British Airways, so the redemption was for British Airways. The London-Mumbai flight is Air India. Now, Air India, never flown them before, but they are part of Star Alliance. And we know that Singapore Airlines are part of Star Alliance, and we can convert our American Express points to KrisFlyer miles, or we can convert our Velocity Flyer miles to KrisFlyer miles. And with Christopher's $50,000 Amex bonus, we only had to put in 5,000 more points, pay $454, and we got 2 Dreamliner flights from London,
Dreamliner,
Delhi to Mumbai, and so I mean we take into account the type of plane, the time of day of the flight, and all that stuff. So,
you're gonna. I can't wait for those pictures.
Yes. And then we were in Mumbai, and how do we get back to Sydney? It's like, okay, we like Singapore Airlines. Let's fly back through Singapore, have a couple of days in Singapore. Let's look at the points. We had enough Qantas points. We could fly back home via Hong Kong if we wanted. And it just wasn't working out. I had this huge table and was like, no, there's too many points. It's not value for money. So we then just Googled, and we found this Malindo Air from Mumbai to Kuala Lumpur. We've never been to Kuala Lumpur. Let's go to Kuala Lumpur.
Excellent.
And also Malindo Air, we'd never heard of them before, but I actually follow a guy on Instagram whose job it is to review airlines, and all he does day in, day out is fly around the world, generally in business class or first class, and reviews the airline. So I just contacted him and I said, what do you know about Malindo Air? He goes, fantastic airlines. They've got new planes. He said, not well known, but he said, great service. He said, I would book it. So that's
perfect.
So we did. So, and subsequently, Malindo Air are now flying Melbourne to Kuala Lumpur. They've just introduced that service, or they're about to early next year, I think. So they are expanding. And then AirAsia X, we sign up to their email newsletter because we've flown them before, and they had a special where we could get from Kuala Lumpur to Sydney for $166 each. And as we said, there was no way that we could do that on points for the same value, so we just booked it. So all those flights cost us 191,686 points, and $2,085.31. So per person, it's $95,843, $1,042.66 each to fly basically around the world for 6 months. And we've signed up, you may remember this earlier slide, where this year we had 155,000 bonus points just by signing up to cards. So we really only had to find another 40,000 points to meet that spend criteria. So,
and then the 1,042 that you spend goes back to more points.
That's right. That's on your credit card. So
so it's a revolving cycle. Good job.
Yeah. So as you see, it is involved. It is. It does take time, But whilst this looks complex, and we didn't do all this in one day, we just did it sector by sector by sector. So when we knew we were coming back to Mexico, we knew, okay, we have to get to Mexico. So let's do that bit. And then I want to go to a yoga institute in India. That's why we're going to India.
Yeah,
so
I remember that.
London to India. So you sort of just do it in chunks and wait for specials to come up, sign up to the airline newsletters, sign up to the credit card newsletters, sign up to Point Hacks. I mean, I know it's more email coming through, but if you're reading that, just read the headlines and that, something will pique your interest. So.
Yeah. And, it's much easier to get around the world once you get over to London.
Yeah.
Than it is to be on this side.
Yes,
I mean, you have a lot of American airlines that are cheap, but in Canada we only have 2 major airlines. That's it. So we don't have a lot of these bonuses, unfortunately.
And the same in Australia. There's really only Qantas and Virgin, and flights on Qantas out of Australia trying to use points is often very difficult. There's often not the reward availability that people want, and that's
so you get blackouts.
That's right, exactly. That's why it was great to be able to use Qantas points from Guadalajara to London. There aren't too many Aussies flying that route.
That's true.
So when we were looking at those flights, those reward seats were always available. We had our choice of day, choice of time. So by using your points with those alliance airlines, you can sort of, once you're into a different part of the world that residents of your country aren't normally in, you've got the world's your oyster. It opens up a lot more options and possibilities. So.
Wow, that's fantastic. So now you can go around the world and do this with, less than 200,000 points.
And you want to talk about the hotel rewards that we use?
Oh, yes. We also
that was the other,
sign up to sites like hotels.com, bookings.com, where you might get, after booking 10 nights, you'll get a night free.
Yeah.
Again, we sign up for those sort of things, but again, paying for your accommodation and getting points, but also getting the bonus nights free as well. So where we can double dip in getting some sort of reward, we will. But yeah, there are a lot of things out there that you can get discounts on. Even like with Airbnb, you can refer people and get a discount on your next booking and all that sort of thing. A lot of people already know about that. But if these things are out there, use them. Like it takes a little bit of time, as Andrew said, but the rewards in the end, like it's not often you can fly around the world for $1,000.
Yeah, I know. For the two of you, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Do you ever use your points for hotels, renting cars, anything like that, or do you just use them for your airfare?
We generally use them just for airfares.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's where you get the best value, and you also get better value with flights on longer haul flights. So like we would very rarely use points with it flying within Australia, because you can get such cheap fares anyway, just like through Europe. Like we would very rarely use flights for a short flight. It's always about what's the best value for the points that you can get.
So, but just on that short flight, we did actually use, when we were home last time, or back in Australia, we did use points for a short flight between Brisbane and Sydney, because it was during the Commonwealth Games and the flights were hideously expensive. So it was cheaper for us to actually use some points rather than paying, $700 or $800 for a flight that we know is worth about $100. So, and because we had so many bonus points and we had them in the account, we used them. So that's the other thing too, is once we have enough points, we will use them. We don't keep saving them up for 500,000, 1 million points to get some round the world business class flight. We just use the points as we have them. If we've got them and when there's a flight that we can use them, we'll use them. So, and then just start accruing them more the next lot.
Yeah, that's another point. And when you're looking for cards, I guess when you're doing your research, some cards do have a limit say 2 years or a year, and you have to use your points up in a year or whatever, depending on the card you're using. So that's another factor to be aware of when you're actually choosing your card.
Yeah. And the other thing in Australia, they'll limit, you can, for instance, the first $2,000 in any calendar month will earn a certain amount of points. And then after that, the point ratio reduces.
Oh.
So that's why you have 2 or 3 cards at the one time, so you've got enough credit for that month, sort of thing.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a good one too.
Yes, they just seem to have introduced that in the last probably 12 months, 2 years, as we've been sort of doing our card reviews. That's another factor that it's now sort of come in. It's like, okay, well, I've got to be aware that I can't spend more than $3,000 in that month, otherwise I'm not going to get the value for the points that I would have previously. So.
Oh, sneaky! They're on to us.
Yes. Yes. I hope none of them watch this video. They're going to close all the movies.
No, they've got the points guy to worry about.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't have to worry about us.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have like 5 top tips?
I think the number one would be do your research.
Mm-hmm.
Like in spending the time to join up to websites to get advised about the bonuses and the points hacks and all that sort of thing. That would be the first thing I would do. You can go out and you can just Google for things like that, but if you get set up in the system, you're going to be alerted to those things anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing would be manage your points, know how you can move them around, and be aware of when they do expire. And that's why I think TripIt Pro is a good one to have, because they will tell you 6 months out, okay, you need to use this many points in the next 6 months. Because all the airlines are hoping you will do is forget about those points, they'll expire and
they don't have to honor them,
I would say have fun doing it. Like now that we've booked this round the world trip, we land back in Sydney in March next year, and we don't have any other flights booked beyond that, but we're just hanging out for the next house sit to come up so that I can start sort of doing the next sort of trip of where we could go. And I do, have fun. I think, okay, we've got another 150,000 points. That's enough to get us back to Canada to do some house sitting, back over to Europe or whatever. So, I would probably, I have a lot of fun. Yeah, that would be my, just get in there and have a go. And, because the points are like an added bonus, really, you can't really go wrong. Mm-hmm. So, you might, we've booked flights and we thought, we probably really shouldn't have used points for that. It wasn't the best value, but we still got from A to B and it still didn't cost us that much. So,
So in the end, really, it's still a win-win situation no matter what you do, right?
That's right.
And you just have to, as long as you're justifying it in whatever, in whatever context you need, it's still doing what you need it to do. I know I've had points that expired and had to blow them on a knife set because I didn't have enough to do anything else. I got a nice knife set out of it. Or on Air Canada.
I would say a fourth point would be don't buy things you don't need.
Yes.
Only spend the money on things that you were going to buy anyway. Yeah. Otherwise, if you're buying things just to get your points up that you don't really need, then they're worthless, really.
Yes, and with our lifestyle, you don't need more crap.
No, it's the last thing you need.
That's right. But the story that Crystal was talking about where you got bonus points if you bought groceries, fuel and liquor, like we couldn't get in the car quick enough. It was like, quick, get some toilet paper, fill up the car, and you have to have a wine for dinner tonight.
I'll have to send you, there's a great IKEA commercial that ran in Canada. I'll have to send you, it's totally about that. I'll have to remember to send it to you because it's hilarious.
And of course, probably the fifth thing is going back to that thing about only use the credit cards if you can pay them off in full. This is your mother talking.
Yes.
But you're not going to get any value if you don't pay your credit cards off in full every month. So.
Right. Great advice, you guys.
Yeah. And
anything else you want to add?
We're happy to answer questions if people have got questions or things. So we're not familiar with the US situation at all.
Yeah.
The only thing, we did join up with Southwest Airlines when we were in the States last year because we were flying them a lot.
Right.
Because they have a great sort of reward program as well. And we do have points in there that we can use the next time that we come back to the US. So, yeah,
Perfect.
because we knew we were going to be flying Southwest so much, it was worthwhile us to actually join that particular program for that period, even though it doesn't sort of transfer into any of our other favoured sort of programs. So,
yeah.
And I think I'm right in saying that there is no expiry date on their points either.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, that's why we signed up to it.
Yeah. We just had that happen here in Canada with Air Canada. They had they called Aeroplan, which was their points plan.
Mm-hmm.
And they had it for years and years and years. And then they never used to expire. Then they put the 2-year, I think it was 2-year maximum on them. That's where I had to buy the knives. And now they've canceled the whole program.
Oh, wow.
So we're waiting for the new program to come in and our points to be transferred to our new program, because Air Canada is one of the major airlines in Canada, obviously, but it's also the most expensive. So even redeeming points through credit cards or whatnot on them is it's like the BA flights, adding the BA flights to your end of it. Air Canada flies everywhere, but it's premium points.
yes, Air Canada, I think you can use Velocity points on Air Canada.
Ooh.
So you may be able to redeem Virgin Australia flights using your Air Canada miles.
Oh, because I know that there's Star Alliance, so I know we can get through.
Oh, right, okay, so then you KrisFlyer and yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you think you want to?
Games and that you can play. Okay, how do I get here? What airline do I want to fly? And how can I use my points?
Yeah. Well, we signed up for Aero Mexico when we started going down to Mexico, because the cheapest flight from Canada direct was from Calgary. And so we signed up with them because we knew we were going to fly a fair bit into and possibly around Mexico. So we still have points sitting up with them, and hopefully the next time we go down, we'll be able to utilize them.
Yeah.
But we used our credit card points for it, as I mentioned earlier on with our last trip, to Mexico, Nicaragua, back to Mexico, back to Canada. So, and that was all done on, I think it was 120 points. It was perfect. It worked out really well. We just, we're lucky. We found it and we're able to use it. And it makes a tremendous difference when you're in our lifestyle to be able to offset that cost as well as your accommodation cost, and anything you can do to make that bite be a little bit easier to get you to another part of the world. Because as you say, you need these things. You need to spend your money on food. You need to spend your money on gas. You need to spend your money on toilet paper and things like that. So why not have it work for you?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
That's brilliant. Okay, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think
that's about it. Yep.
I think that's where we're at. We're done there. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. And I think there's a lot of really good information there that we've covered and gone through. And I'm sure that our members will be really pleased with what they see when they see us, when we get it together.
Yes.
And as I said, we're happy to answer questions, and
Perfect.
we don't know everything. We've just sort of picked up our tips and tricks along the way. So I'm sure there's people out there with other tips and tricks as well.
Oh, it's such an overwhelming and can be a mind-boggling process to understand it all, because things change so quickly too. You've got all the new cards that come out. You've got all new programs that come out, and just being able to get through the minefield a little bit, I think, helps people understand the process better and make it less daunting for them, and help a lot more people get through their travel the way we do.
Yep. Definitely. Yep.
All right, cool. I'm going to stop the recording now. Where do I stop that? Over here. There we go. Ta-da! Woohoo!